Welcome everyone. Today's topic is whether to flip or to rent in a pandemic. So we're gonna start with the basics. Whether you should flip or rent and how you need to approach the pandemic with real estate. So we're going to start with the differences, the pros and cons of flipping, the pros and cons of renting, and what you need to do next in the next upcoming 6 to 12 months. Okay, so flipping, you have pros and cons. So let's just quickly display all of them. So the pros is that you can turn your project easily in less time for a flip. Okay, and then for a profit. Now, the cons is that when you sell a property, it triggers a tax event. So you're going to pay taxes on your net profit. If you are new, this could be a very risky exit strategy to begin with. Then you need to have cash to pay for the rehab, even though you might finance most of it through the Harmony lenders or asset-based lenders. They often pay 100% of the financing. So overall, it's more risk and more hassles, right? Because when you flip a property, the quality of the rehab needs to be very, very high because right now also depends on the area. Buyers, if you want to get top dollars, they're gonna ask for a great rehab. So compared to renting, right? So when you do a rehab for a rental, it's more flexible, so you don't need to do it like top quality. So now let's talk about the buy and hold, the pros and cons. Okay, so there are a lot more pros when you buy and hold the property because over time that's how you're gonna build real estate wealth with rentals. So it's less pressure because the rehab doesn't need to be as high quality as for the flip. And then most importantly, you're gonna have steady passive income. Okay, that's by far the most important. Not only that, but overall, you're gonna accumulate and increase your net worth, okay, through rentals. Now, the cons of rentals are that you're gonna be dealing with tenants, so turnovers, potentially bad tenants, and evictions. That's the only bad thing about owning rentals. But if you have a property management company doing this for you, then it's a headache off your plate. Okay. Um, so what we've developed is a framework, whether you should flip or rent. Okay, because we've seen that many people have let go of great long-term wealth properties, meaning they're just selling or flipping the golden goose when they could instead have passive income. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you the framework that we developed that is gonna help you quickly decide whether you should flip or rent a property. Okay, so what we've done is we developed a spreadsheet that will give you the framework. So all you need to do is fill in the blue text fields for the flip and for the hold scenario. But in a nutshell, if your flip profit is going to be less than 10 times your projected annual cash flow, then you should keep the property, meaning you need to buy and hold. So I'm going to repeat this again. If your net profit, let's assume your net profit is going to be 100,000, but your projected cash flow for 10 years is going to be over 100,000, then you need to keep it. Okay. But if your net profit is more than that, than the projected cash flow for 10 years of your rental, then you need to sell it. It is that simple. So let's just quickly go over an example right here. So as you can see, the decision says flip, but let's just quickly put in the numbers. So you buy the property for, we're gonna start all over again. So 100,000, 1, 2, 3, okay? And then obviously for the buy and hold, you will also buy it for 100,000, okay? Now the rehab, this is what I was telling you. The rehab for a flip is going to be a little bit higher than for the rental. So let's assume the rehab is going to be 45,000. 1, 2, 3. However, for the rental, it's going to only be 30,000. So it doesn't need to be like top notch. Now, ARV, that is something super important. The ARV will be, let's assume it's going to be 250. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, here, as you can see, we're already computing the ARV for the rental. It's not going to be 250, it's only going to be 225. Why? Because the rehab is not as nice as for the flip. So now let's plug in some numbers. Monthly income. Let's assume that if we were to rent the property, we would rent it for 1,700. Okay. Now, monthly expenses. So this refers to operating expenses such as tax, insurance, property management, upkeep of the property. So 600 per month. Now, your mortgage, we automatically compute what your mortgage is going to be based on the purchase price and the rehab. Now, the interest rate, we're going to put 6%. That's fine. So in this case, we're given the option, the decision to flip the property. Why is that? Because the profit for the flip is going to be 77,000. Okay, this is taking into account that you have some closing expenses and the cost to sell the property, meaning you're going to pay 5 to 6% to the listing agent. So when you subtract the expenses from the ARV, from what you sell the property for, then you only make 77,000. Okay, now look at the projected cash flow for 1 year times 10, meaning 10 years. So the projected cash flow is 47,823. So it's best to flip. Okay, it is that simple when your net profit is greater than 10 times the projected yearly cash flow. So that's the rule of thumb. We call this the rule of 10. Okay, very, very simple. Now let's switch the scenario where it makes more sense to rent the property. So in here, we are going to put the ARV a lot less. Let's say the ARV is going to be 220. Okay, and then my cash flow is going to be maybe 900. Boom, it changed from flipping to hold. Did you see that? So when the ARV for the property, we dropped it from 250 to 220, automatically the ARV for the rental dropped to 198, so less than 200,000, and the rent is 1,900. Okay, so right away you need to hold the property, because if you were to flip it, you would make 50,000, but if you were to hold it, then you would make 71,000 positive cash flow in 10 years. Okay, so this is the framework that most successful investors use to determine whether to flip or to rent the property. It is that simple. But you don't need to worry about whether you need to flip or rent. All you need to do is plug in few numbers and we're going to compute the answer for you right here. And then we also have another tab in the spreadsheet. We compute the mortgage amortization schedule right here. So this is going to help you know when the property is going to be paid off. And here you can modify the interest rate, or you can modify, actually the interest rate is modified on the first sheet. You can change the term, like 30 years, and then you're going to see how the property gets paid, and how much you are going to be paying in interest, mortgage, and so forth. So this is just for more details, but overall, in a nutshell, it is very simple. What determines whether you should flip or hold? Now, let's talk about, one thing is to know the numbers, okay? Whether I'm gonna need to buy and hold or flip. Okay, this is one thing that you need to look at. The second thing, and most important, is the area. The area where the property resides needs to support that particular exit strategy. So let me give you an example. For instance, let's just take the numbers that we have on the screen. This property that we bought for, in fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna run these, I'm gonna tweak the numbers a bit to show you a real life example. So the property 120 was purchased for 120, 1, 2, 3. The rehab was done for 35,000, 1, 2, 3. The ARV was 230, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then if we were to rent the property, it would rent for 1,600. Okay, so those are real tangible numbers. Okay, so what I'm telling you here is we bought the property in Chicago for 120. We put in about 35,000 and ARV was 230. So we ended up making about 47 net profit. Now, had we decided to rent the property, we would rent it for like 1,600. And then again, the purchase price, in fact, should be 120. And then the rehab would have been about maybe 5,000 less. ARV is less, rent is 1,600, operating expenses is about the same, interest rate. So it says to flip. So in here, we took this approach to flip this property and make the close to $50,000. But the area makes a huge difference, okay? Because let me show you this real life example. Let's go back to the browser. This is the property that we bought in Chicago for 120,000. Okay, we bought it for 120. We fixed it up. We put in 35,000, and we sold it for 230. Okay, but now between the purchase price and the sale price, there's something in between, right? The decision whether to hold or to sell the property for a flip. So what we did is very simple. We plugged in the numbers into this framework. Okay, so it told us you've got to flip the property because you're going to be making more money flipping it than renting it because rents are not so high, 1,600 for that particular property. So we also confirmed the decision by looking up the area report. Okay, so we went into area reports here in ChicagoDealVault. This happens to be in Archer Heights. Okay, so we pulled the report and then we scroll down to the sales market analysis in the last 12 months. So all you need to know if it's a flipping market is the months of housing supply. So for single family homes, it's only 1 month. So what does that mean? It means that assuming there are no new properties coming for sale into the market, it will only take 1 month for all the properties that are for sale to run out. So all that inventory is going to run out in 1 month. So that makes it a great flipping market. So the rule of thumb is if the area has months of housing supply of 2.5 months or less, it's a flipping market. Okay, so these are the two things that you need to know whether you should flip or rent. Okay, in a regular market. Okay, listen to what I just said, in a regular market. So you need to check two things. You need to check the months of housing supply and the spreadsheet to compare the cash flow versus the net profit for a flip. It is that simple. So it's going to take you less than 5 minutes just to plug in few numbers and to look at the months of housing supply for the neighborhood. Very, very simple. Now, something that you need to keep in mind with this pandemic is that overall, we're in a contracting economy. So with unemployment being so high, a lot of people will obviously lose their home to the foreclosure process. And we also have historically low interest rates. So what happens when you combine all of these? When you have low interest rates, meaning it's very cheap to borrow money, people are overstretching themselves to buy property. So they think they can buy more house. So there are going to be more buyers coming into the market, But the thing is that inventory supply is still low. Therefore, right now, property prices are still holding high. However, property prices have already dropped about 2 to 7%, depending on the area, whether it's Chicagoland or suburbs. 2 to 7% have dropped in value right now. Why? Because property sales have dropped about 20% in the Chicagoland area. Why? Because of the pandemic. People not being able to physically see the properties. Okay, that has caused a great drop in property sales. But yet, property prices are holding strong. I mean, it's been only a very tiny little drop in property prices of 2 to 7%. This is because we have a low supply of inventory. So it's supply and demand, right? So you have a high demand because there are a lot of buyers into the market and low supply of inventory. But guess what? That's going to change in the next 6 to 12 months. The supply of inventory is going to increase because there's going to be a huge wave of foreclosures coming down the pipe in the next 6 to 12 months. And this is due to two things: unemployment, people not being able to pay their mortgage and rent, and also due to forbearance, meaning that owners can skip up to 6 months of mortgage payments, but then at the end of the forbearance period, they need to come up with the combined lump sum worth of 6 months of mortgage. If they don't have that money, they're going to go into foreclosure. So owners can extend forbearance twice. So in the next 12 months, there are going to be two waves of foreclosures coming from forbearance. And already 10% of all homeowners in the United States are in forbearance. That's a huge number, okay? That's a huge number. In addition to a 25% unemployment rate that's causing a lot of people to not be able to pay mortgage. So all these foreclosures are going to be coming back into the market. So that's going to increase the inventory supply, causing property prices to, when you have an increase in inventory supply and still the demand is high, so we're going to have property prices adjusted. Okay, so when you have more supply, then property prices are going to drop. So the NAR projects up to a 20% drop in property prices in the next 12 months. So that means that pre-COVID, in February, the house that is worth 100,000 a year later could be worth 80,000, okay? Which means that for you, you should focus on buy and hold and wholesale, okay? If you take a flipping project, is going to be very risky, because if you see down the road that property prices are going to drop, guess what? By the time you buy the property, you rehab the property, you put it on the market, your property has already dropped in value from the time you did an appraisal in the first place. Does that make sense? So you have to be very, very careful if you are going to do a flip, because right now it's a lot riskier than in the past before COVID. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. So again, I want to summarize. You have three exit strategies in real estate: wholesale, flip, and rent, buy and hold. True wealth in real estate comes from rentals. Okay, when you own rentals long term, that's how you're going to have passive income from rents. And not only that, but your net worth will continue to increase over time, and your cash flow as well, because rents continue to go up on a single year. Why? Because population grows. There is always demand for housing. Okay, so rentals are the way to go long term. Now, flips, on the other hand, it's riskier because there are more moving pieces that you need to get right, and if you don't, you're going to lose money. I'm going to tell you three things that you need to nail down perfectly correct for you not to lose money. Number one, you need to buy the property for the right amount. If you overpay, that's going to tap into your net profit. Second, you need to come up with an accurate rehab estimate. If you go over budget on your rehab, you're going to lose money, and you need to sell it for what you think you're going to sell it for. Otherwise, you're tapping into your net profit. So those are the three numbers that you need to get right on the flip. That is why I personally don't like flips, because it's too much pressure, starting with the rehab, right? And then making sure that you sell it for where you think the ARV is going to be, and then buying the property for the right amount. So we already know how much we should buy the property for based on the rehab and the ARV. But when you have a changing economy, contracting economy like today, where property prices are going to for sure drop up to 20% in the next 6 to 12 months, then that's a spin that you put into your flipping strategy, that it goes against your net profit. Okay, that is why you have to be extremely conservative and cautious when doing flips. Now, if you decide to do a flip, you need to check two things. Number one, you've got to make sure that the market supports your flipping strategy. Wherever the property resides, you need to make sure that the months of housing supply is 2.5 or less, which means that the whole inventory for sale will run out in 2.5 months or less. Like in this case, Archer Heights, I mean, and in fact, this was so accurate, friends. Look, they say that we would sell the property in a month. I'm not kidding you. It's so accurate. So if I look at the details for the flip, it was on the market for only 3 weeks, and we sold it in 3 weeks. Okay, so looking at the area analysis proved the concept that the months of housing supply is such an accurate indicator of a flipping market. And you're going to find some markets where the months of housing supply is like 6, 7, 8 months. It's crazy. It takes no less than 6 months to sell a property. I mean, it's just insane. So if you try to do a flip in those neighborhoods, whoa, it's going to be extremely risky. And the second thing that obviously you need to do, you need to plug in your flip and rental scenario. All you need is purchase price, rehab, ARV, and monthly income. That's about it. And then we're going to tell you whether you should flip or buy and hold. Remember, the formula is as follows. If your net profit from the flip is greater than 10 times the yearly projected positive cash flow from the rental, then you need to flip. Else, you need to buy and hold. But again, you don't need to worry, create, work, or anything. We're going to give you the spreadsheet that helps you understand whether you should flip or buy and hold. In addition, you always have access to over 300 area analysis reports in the Chicagoland area, neighborhoods, and suburbs. So you know for sure whether you need to flip and rent. But again, the spin that we have now in the contracting economy is that property prices are going to drop in the next 6 to 12 months, which is a good thing for investors who are looking to buy properties, or wholesalers, right? Because there are going to be a huge number of motivated distressed sellers willing to sell the property. So those two strategies are going to be the way to go in the next 6 to 12 months. Flips, please be extremely conservative and cautious, okay? Because with this COVID, we never know when things are going to be back to normal. In the meantime, many people don't feel comfortable going out there and looking at properties. So it's going to stay on the market a lot longer, okay? Number one. And then if you have the factor of property prices adjusting or contracting, meaning going down, then that's a factor that will tap into your net profit. So please be very cautious if you're considering a flip. If you already have a property that you need to flip, you've got to sell it as soon as possible. Okay, you need to price it right to sell as soon as possible. Right now, that there's still a low inventory supply and the prices are holding high right now. So this is the time to sell if you have something to sell, because nothing is going to happen before elections, which are in November. So real estate will be very quiet. Property prices will still continue to hold strong. They already dropped like 2 to 7%. but they're not gonna drop the 10 to 20%. Okay, that's gonna happen next year, 2021. So nothing crazy before elections, but when it comes winter and early spring, that's when you're going to see a lot of changes because forbearance, foreclosures are going to be coming down the pipe. By then, courts will have opened, so you're going to be seeing a lot of foreclosures already recycling back into the market. So just be cautious if you're thinking about flips. Now, there's a question on the line right here. 12 months from now or when COVID started in March? Great question. So it's going to be 12 months from March, okay, from when COVID started. So um, right now, the forbearance the first wave of forbearance is going to come due after elections sometime in November. You're going to see that people who are still unemployed cannot come up with 6 months worth of mortgage. So they're going to be the first wave of foreclosures. However, they can renew forbearance twice, so another 6 months. So yeah, by 2021, early spring, meaning March 2021, you're gonna see a bigger price drop in properties. Why? Because there's gonna be an increased number of foreclosures. Okay, so when you have an increase in inventory supply, property prices will drop. Unemployment is still very high. So all these factors will cause property prices to come down. Still, interest rates are very low. That makes very attractive for buyers with cash to come into the market. Okay, and also, if you have properties that you need to refinance, this is the time to refinance. In fact, we're refinancing 5 properties right now, okay? Because interest rates are extremely low, historically low. So we're looking at maybe upper 4, low 5 interest rates for the refinance on investment property. So it's just extremely attractive. That's going to help us increase our cash flow when you refinance. Um, are there any questions on the line? So I just want to summarize because I like simplicity. I want to keep it simple. I want to make sure that you fully understand what you're doing. That real estate is it's not so complicated. I mean, it's complicated, but I want to make it so simple for you because everything has a rule of thumb. It's just like blackjack, like any other thing, right? So you have 3 exit strategies. You either buy and hold, fix and flip, or wholesale. The way to go real wealth in real estate is through long-term investment in rentals. Why? Because you're going to have passive income through rentals, which will continue to go up every year. That rents go up every year. You are going to increase your net worth on a yearly basis because property prices appreciate in value every year. Okay, so long term, you've got to do rentals. In the short term, you can do wholesaling, which is going to be extremely lucrative right now because there are going to be a lot of distressed, motivated sellers. Okay, so you are going to be able to tap into great deals to wholesale if you don't need to buy and hold or fix and flip. Now, flipping, um, the problem with flipping is that it's way too risky. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. You need to do the rehab right and under budget. You need to have a very accurate ARV, after repair value. Not only that, but when you sell the property, you need to be very close to that ARV. Number 3, you need to buy the property for the right price. Okay, and the problem that you have now is that property prices are for sure going to adjust, meaning go down in the next 6 to 12 months. That makes your flipping exit strategy very risky. Okay, so I would suggest to stay away from flips. If you have a flip right now, sell it as soon as possible before elections, before the winter. After the winter, it's going to be a great opportunity for investors to buy properties, but not so good opportunity for flippers. Okay, it's not going to look good for flippers. And when you flip a property, guess what? You're not building any wealth. You are just running on the treadmill, because the minute you stop doing flips, guess what? Your income goes down to zero. Not only that, but when you sell a property, you trigger a tax event, which means Uncle Sam is going to tap into your net profit. That's simple. So wealthy people don't sell properties, they refinance. They can tap into their equity instead of selling the property, because when you sell the property, guess what? Uncle Sam will tap into your net profit from your sale. Okay, so try to be extremely conservative on flips, stick to rentals and wholesales. And to determine whether you should flip or rent, you need to look, number one, at months of housing supply. That's going to determine whether it's a flipping market or not. And second of all, the spreadsheet that we're going to give you has the rule of thumb that if your net profit is greater than 10 times your yearly projected cash flow, then you should flip. But if it's less than that, you need to buy and hold. Okay, so we're going to make everything available to you. I want to make sure that you all have access to DealVault. So we're gonna give it to you for free for the next 30 days, because I want you to really get familiar with all the lead types that we have for off market, start making offers, and utilize our preferred partners. Okay, that's the team that we use. Please utilize unlimited one-on-one training that we have. So to sign up for free, I'm gonna give you a new promo code. It's going to be flip or rent. Okay, so for the package right here is going to be special Chicago deal vault, and then for the promo is gonna be flip or rent. Okay, that's a promo code. Get it free for 30 days. After that is going to be 140, okay, per month. Should you decide to continue, we have unlimited training.